Yeah, if you don't want me in here, just don't tell me.
I'm gonna totally edit this part out. Hi, Father Mitchell here, and welcome to this week's episode of Next Caller. I'm joined by a former guest and certainly a good friend and a beloved priest of our diocese, Father Aaron Kuhn. Father Aaron, you're our next caller.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Father Mitchell. You are an excellent host, and it's always nice to be able to participate in this.
Father Aaron was on our pilot episode of Next Caller, and yeah, we're already on episode number 8, which beat the odds, because I was expecting ours to be episode 1 of 1.
I was expecting to return because I got my pilot's license, so after the pilot episode, I figure I'm coming back.
I've only got my pilot permit, yeah. Right? So we're going to talk this week about area Catholic communities, because we keep hearing that ACC acronym tossed around, and a lot of people might be thinking, like, what does ACC mean? So this week we're going to talk about area Catholic communities, what they are, and what we can expect in the months and really years to come. Father Aaron has been a part of the Planning Council really from the beginning, and so he comes with that unique perspective of knowing where this was born out of, this initiative, why it's needed, and what we can expect from some of our area Catholic communities in the future. And so, where did this come from? Obviously, there's been initiatives in the past to try to anticipate a declining number of priests, changing demographics. Obviously, we have a far more Latino or Spanish-speaking Catholics in our diocese than we had, and we also have a more urbanized Catholic Church. Obviously, Elk River, Alexandria, Saint Cloud have far more Catholics than they might have had in the past, whereas our rural communities are getting smaller and smaller.
And they're in decline.
And they're in decline.
Well, the impetus for all of this would have been 30, 40 years ago when they first started looking at clustering process for parishes way back then. So this is nothing new as far as planning goes for the Diocese of Saint Cloud. But about every 10 years or so, we actually get into a specific planning process for the next 10 to 15 years that will try to be carried out. So a few years ago, the question was coming up again, since it's been 10 years since the last one, are we ready now to see any adjustments that we need to make? And so a full-scale effort was put into place with an actual commission at the diocesan level for planning. People like myself were selected into that commission to help at the diocesan level. And the more that we were looking at the way our parishes are structured with current clusters, and then realizing to move from about 70 priests that are active as pastors and priests taking care of those parishes down to around 40, some of those upper 40s, over the next 10 years from now, we probably need to make some greater adjustments to some of the clusterings and some of the relationships between parishes overall, if we are, in fact, trying to avoid closing parishes if possible to do that. So with that, that first part of a reactive process also came along then a more important recognition that we need to be proactive. And with that proactivity, we are looking to see how can we make our parishes more vital and vibrant at the parish level? How can we get parishes to work along to share resources? Beyond just simply sharing pastors, how could we share staff better? How could we share programming better between locations? And so those two key items placed together, the dealing with the shortage of priests and working for vibrancy of parishes. Vibrancy really has become the number one thing that we vocalize through all of this, but we also know the practicality of a declining number of priests. So with those two things in mind, the Commission came up with the idea of larger organizations of parishes together. And this is nothing new as far as the United States goes. We are probably one of 10 to 15 different dioceses that have already gone through that kind of a process. Boston being probably the biggest name that did it in the last number of years and the most organized in how they handled it. That's had different names for how that would be organized. We decided to settle with area Catholic communities. And so portions of the diocese of clusters that are currently already in relationship with one another, as well as clusters next to that, have been placed together across county lines, across deanery lines, whatever it is, as long as we can get what seems to be the most realistic and practical organization of parishes together. And so we now have 29 area Catholic communities across the entirety of the 16 counties of the diocese.
Mm-hmm. And this is comprised of 131 churches currently?
Yes, 131 parishes that are united together under probably about 60 priests that are active as pastors and parochial vicars. And so again, we know that number is going to decline just by the larger number of baby boom priests who are getting to retirement age. And then the number of incoming priests is pretty good, but it's not enough to match the number of retirements over the next 10 years.
Sure. I know something I tried to make clear to parishioners over in our parishes in Todd County there was that this isn't just about declining number of priests.
Correct.
In part because in the Diocese of Saint Cloud, our numbers, or the ratio of priest to parishioner, is actually very good. We're actually above average compared to the United States. I believe it's something like one priest for every 4,000 to 5,000 Catholics, lay Catholics, and on average across the United States. But in our diocese, it's one priest for every 2,500 Catholics.
Right.
And this is staggering when it's set against Maracay in Venezuela, our sister diocese, because it's more like one priest for every 18,000 Catholics.
Correct.
And I might have mentioned this on an episode in the past, but I just think that's so important to keep in perspective of, do we have a priest shortage? Yes, but relatively speaking, I mean, it can be far more drastic for one, and two, it's not like priests don't have time or availability. People just need to put us to work in a sense, because when I started to measure it out, it's sort of like if you allow for a priest to get 8 hours of sleep and personal time and things like this, you still have a priest being able to give 60 minutes of his every year to every person in the parish if you sort of measured it out. And so, that was just helpful for me to try to remind us that really there's not a shortage of priests, even though we would like to see more priests. And dare I say, we have a shortage of Catholics right now.
Yeah, it's really, we have a decline is what we do. We have a decline in the number of priests and a decline in the number of Catholics, but we have the same number of buildings. Mm-hmm. And that's where the pinch comes in, because you have the resources that were allocated 10 to 15 years ago for a larger number of priests and a larger number of Catholics. Those resources now have to be adjusted to a smaller number of priests and a smaller number of Catholics.
Sure. So we have 29 area Catholic communities serving 131 parishes with about, you said 70 priests, active priests as of right now?
That, of course, will change with the upcoming number of retirements that are going to happen this year and ordinations. This is the hard part about quoting numbers when you don't have the numbers down solid.
Right.
But we're in the 60s to 70s range right now of priests that are serving in the parishes.
Sure. Well, tell me about the planning process that's going on in your region, the Wadena area region. Tell me about your ACC and what you found is helpful in your planning process.
Yes, so not only am I a member of the diocesan level commission, I'm also one of the 3 pastors involved in the 8 parishes of our area Catholic community. And as of late, we changed our name from the North Central Area Catholic Community to Mary, Mother of the Church Area Catholic Community. Nice, good, solid name. We're very happy about it. So with Mary as our patroness, we are 8 parishes together. We are St. Anne's in Wadena, St. John the Baptist in Bluffton, St. Joseph's in Bertha, St. Frederick's in Verndale, St. Hubert's in Bluegrass, Assumption of Our Lady in Monaga, Sacred Heart in Staples, and St. Michael's in Motley. That was pretty good to memorize all of those. 8. We are the largest out of all the area Catholic communities. The next closest ones would have 7 and 6 and 5 in their numbers. We are the largest with 8. And so with that geographic territory, we have 3 priests currently serving that area. We have probably about 6,000 to 7,000 Catholics that we're taking care of across that totality of space. And we have had a process that's been going on for about 2 years, two and a half years, where we've been doing conversations at the parish level with committee meetings, parish council meetings, staff meetings, open invitations to parishioners to come in for listening sessions. And all of that is to collect data, collect information, and get ourselves postured for submitting a plan to Bishop Kettler as of last Christmas. We did that. We set a plan forward. It's about 4 to 5 pages of a plan, and it details 4 major areas that we're looking at as being areas of improvement that we want to grow in. So one of them is our staffing and administration and how we want to share resources that way. Another one is evangelization and going out and doing outreach to local community peoples and groups of peoples, and outreach to other churches and all of that. And then we have a focus on faith formation and youth ministry. And remember the 4th one now here. And the other one.
And the other one. I think that's how a lot of parents start to treat their children. You know, there's Becky, Susie, Billy, and the other one.
And the other one. Now it'll drop in my mind in 1 second. But
sure.
Yeah. So we have those 4 major areas that we're looking into of setting up ourselves for success down the road, and we've been having meetings. It feels for 2 years, probably every month,
right.
Having different kinds of meetings. Yep. To get that going.
Yeah, and I know I've been a part of that process because my parishes are split really between 2 ACCs as it currently stands. We have St. Joseph Bertha, that's part of the Mary Mother of the Church, and then Christ the King in Barville and St. Joseph and Clarissa that are part of the 5-star area Catholic community down just south, closer to Long Prairie, Swanville, Grey Eagle, that region. And yeah, there's a lot of meetings I've gone into. What I've been so impressed by in the meetings up here and in Long Prairie is how collaborative the people are coming from different parishes.
Right.
They all realize that a sacrifice is going to be made, and they have been very willing to make concessions from their community, knowing that we're all making concessions and contributions in order to become better together. So that's been really great, and also just the wealth of talent amongst our lay members as they've been putting that forward. We know that our laymen and women are very talented, are very competent and capable people, and to see them so generously contribute their talents and their expertise to this, it's been really inspiring. It's been very inspiring.
Yeah, and you'll notice that even with the goals that we've been setting at the area Catholic communities, it's about our vibrancy. Mm-hmm. We know that we have to adjust to the number of priests. Well, that's easy. You just make some decisions and you move on and you adjust to that. But the harder work is getting the programming that we do, the people that attend that programming, to really form and make disciples out of people where they are engaged in their faith in a more deep and personal level, where they're being nourished and fed on an individual level, but then realizing the mission that they have as lay people to go out. And that's where the talents, the gifts, the willingness of people to step forward and volunteer and help out, we've been really blessed in seeing that happen.
Sure. Are there any challenges that you faced along the way as an area Catholic community from the planning perspective?
Mm-hmm. Communication and communication and communication.
Yes. Because
the process is so long and drawn out, people hear different things and rumors go around, and what are we actually doing? Well, the plans were approved this spring, and of course then COVID-19 happened, and nothing is able to be actively instated of those plans at the present moment. In fact, we've had to adjust with new plans.
Yep.
Things like shutting down the parishes, making them safe, and then reopening them. So as much as we know that the area Catholic community planning process will come about, it is right now one of those that's just sort of in a kind of little plateaued area. I don't want to say it's static and not happening, but we're waiting. We have emergency priorities that are in place.
Yeah, I know a question I was regularly asked was, when are we going to become an area Catholic community? And I would respond by saying, we are an area Catholic community. Effectively, the area Catholic community has begun, but we really haven't seen any effective change because the pastoral planning process with our area Catholic community pastoral councils is still developing the very plans that will make it more actual. Plus, when it comes to a change of priest assignments, that's going to make it more actual, because then when you have a set number of priests, that's going to in part determine your mass schedule. That's
right.
And then you're going to be making decisions like a joint bulletin or not a joint bulletin, whatever it might be. And so it will be phased in, these changes, and so it will become more actual, as though to say it can't be born until it's developed.
Exactly right. And we might put just a simple caution out there. This is not larger clusters. We are not creating larger cluster of parishes that just place more demands on the priests to do work, or even the staff themselves. What we're trying to do is spread the wealth of resources and volunteers and relationships across the laity of the parishes so that we can take the burden off the priests of some of the weight of administration. And if you have one priest for 4 to 6 parishes worth of people, that's a lot of time where he's traveling and going out and doing things. So the administration of those parishes and the day-to-day interactivities of Bible studies that are running and all of that stuff that the priest may have had more personal contact with before, we want to get him having personal contact with people in relationship, in people's homes, going out and ministering sacraments and doing the kind of the more practical things that only a priest can do, and have that administrative side be something that's taken on with a shared burden across multiple lay people. Sure. And sharing with the priest in that way. So
this is something we see in the Acts of the Apostles, because the reason that they appoint the 7 deacons is so that they can continue to dedicate themselves to preaching and to to
ministry of word
and ministry of the word. Yeah. So preaching and the ministering of the word. And so really, that's something like what we're seeing is it's not that we want to see our priests be less busy; it's that we want to see them be as busy doing more of the things that only they can do.
Correct. Yeah, it's an effectiveness of the ministry that we want to be able to have. Yep. I mean, even right now with the COVID-19 things that have been going on, I think people are kind of surprised when they say, well, Father, you must be bored out of your mind. And I'm like, well, no, I'm actually just as busy as I was before. It's just the things that I'm doing are more of the administrative stuff that I was trying to put aside.
Yep.
But because I can't necessarily have all the contact with the people by going out, it's much more internalized structural stuff that we're putting our focus into as priests. So I feel just as busy.
Yeah, I've talked with other priests and I've talked with area pastors from the other Christian communities in that the Eagle Valley region there, and we all have the same sentiment that we're not less busy, we're just busy doing other things, whether it's the administrative concerns that we either didn't have time for, or responding to the new set of circumstances, so learning how to video edit, or learning how to cast and all minister to people in a removed way, in a socially distanced way. Yeah.
Taping down pews to make sure people are going to be safe, making sure that stuff is ordered and organized, that we have face masks, that they're the right kind of face masks,
right.
Responding to phone calls with the diocesan level things, running around and trying to implement all of the changes that happen, and then 3 days later finding out that those changes are out of date and we're going to do some new ones.
Right.
It's great.
That is one thing that I think is a real credit to the church. So in part what makes the church structure so beautiful is that there's no detail that was insignificant. And so when you look at some of these more ornate churches, there was so much attention given to even something as simple as a column. Practically speaking, it holds up the roof. And yet there was reason to make it more beautiful. And this is into antiquity where columns were really personified, right, with the capital, and just even in their design. And so all these little details matter when it comes to the administration of a parish, when it comes to ministering to the people, because of the fact that the people themselves matter. There's no detail too small that we don't want to be as good as we can have it, so as to minister as best we can. So with the area Catholic community, you mentioned that it was we're avoiding the clustering mentality, and I know something I saw on the diocesan planning website, they talked about collaboration versus competition, and wondering if you can speak a little bit to what's the difference between a collaborative model versus maybe a competitive attitude between churches?
Yes. So when you're sharing a priest, it maybe feels like a family where you're trying to share mom and dad, and the mentality, if you have that kind of an attitude towards, I want my fair amount of time, that's not realistic in a healthy family. Sometimes mom and dad need to spend some time with one versus the other and all of that, but you're ultimately looking for all of us working together as a family. And so you move out of competition mode into how can we share our gifts and talents with one another to make the family life better, and that all of us are participating, and the maturity of all of us is moved at an adult level in that way, rather than a competition for attention. It's not to say that our parishes don't function that way, or that they do function that way. But I mean, I don't know how your experience is. My lived experience as a parishioner before I became a priest was, Even when we shared a priest with another parish, it was like, well, he's ours when he's up on our location, and he's yours when he's at your location over there. But we don't cross sides. If I go over to your parish, I guess I'm kind of a visitor like everybody else. And that's the competition model. What we're trying to see ourselves as is well, we're all Catholics. We just happen to have separate locations that we worship at, and those locations are really important towards the organization of the church. But just like when I'm a Catholic who travels over to France and I drop in for Mass on Sunday at a parish in France, and then they say there's a pancake breakfast afterwards, I'm a Catholic, so I go to the pancake breakfast, or the crepe breakfast, whatever they would have over there, right?
Sure.
And then, we're Catholics, so all of the Catholics get together with the Pope, and we're all Catholics, and we all celebrate together, different languages, but we all share in the same family. Well, why not the same mentality at the parish level? So the resources that we have, the people that are involved there, yes, we need the separation of things, but collaboration is about recognizing that we all contribute. We all share in the mission
One of
together.
the concerns that, of course, gets raised right away is finances, because you tend to take care of the things that you own, at least that you have a sense of ownership over. And so now one of the benefits of having that parochial identity is people tend to take care of their own parish. This is our parish, it's our responsibility, it's our really privilege to care for this space.
Yes.
And the concern certainly that I have is, well, what happens when people start to lose that parochial identity and it becomes more of the area Catholic community? Will people lose that concern for their parish? Or will it translate into a generosity of time, talent, and treasure overall? And is there such a point in which you would actually expect too much of people or stretch them too thin? I mean, if they're going to 3 different churches and 3 different churches are expecting them to be able to contribute to their building project, wouldn't that get a bit tiresome? Or wouldn't it be a bit of a discouragement if, in sharing resources, the one parish that's struggling to get ushers is now calling the neighboring church, whereby they're always asking the ushers from that other parish to come help out, and somebody feels like they just never get a weekend off, because when they get a weekend off of the parish at which they're registered, they're being called by the neighboring parish, and pretty soon people are just getting burnt out.
Well, I mean, you make great points, Father. The danger that we can have in all of this is 2 extremes. One is parochialism. We're going to hold on to everything we possibly can of our own parish, and we'll only share if we have a surplus. Versus a complete total integration to one giant 8-parish thing that's actually one giant parish. Neither of those extremes are what we're shooting for.
Sure.
The joining together of the 8 parishes into a area Catholic community it's like blending 2 families together.
Yeah.
So there will be parts of that process where you do say, hey, we are going to need help with volunteers from another parish, and feeling comfortable and asking for it. But there are demarcations of things that just sort of legally have to be separate, which is finances. Those are not automatic. Like you cannot join all of the parish's finances across all of 8 and say, we've got one pot. That is not going to happen. It's not possible. It's not legal, and we're not going to do it.
Sure.
But that having been said, you're going to feel this tension back and forth. Somewhere in the middle is between everybody's on their own versus we're all just one and forget about it. There has to be a middle ground that we're trying to shoot for, and it's going to feel that way back and forth as you wrestle through
that
it.
image of family, I think, worked out really well. And this will be the tension too: is will we ever get to a point in which the ACC is my family? That we really do see the area Catholic community as our sort of parish family, even though we have multiple locations. But until then, at the same time, being able to be a strong family as a parish without taking away from wanting to be a part of that area Catholic community. And so I think if 2 families come together, they're able to work together in a better way if they're strong enough on their own. Right? So a parish that would be sort of stable and collaborative together is almost more set up to be collaborative with one another, provided they've done it in a healthy way, avoided things like parochialism, which says, this is our church, our money, our people, our priest, our.
Stop stealing from us. Yeah.
Right. Where that spirit, and that's just it. There can be a spirit of care. There can also be a spirit of covetousness, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
That which is a sin,
yeah, still, haven't changed that.
Yeah, that tension between we're all one versus leave us alone, we're only one. That will be a constant tension that we face.
Sure.
I would say wherever you fall on the spectrum as a person, within that if you feel like somehow you fall more in the direction of I really don't want to lose our parish. If that's the direction you live in your mind and all of that, stretch yourself to feel more like one giant church. If you're someone who you're just really global and you don't have any roots within your own parish, stretch yourself to get close to that other side, to really grow yourself on an internal level, because that's what's going to help us.
Sure. And what I found very encouraging is that I hear stories about people that before this clustering took place, or when these clusters first started to come into
20 to 30 years ago.
There was just such resistance.
Right.
And to see the way that people have gradually opened up to it, whereby they can attend Mass at another church, and they're still providing a great deal of care and a great deal of generosity to their own parish. I mean, we still have plenty of lectors, we still have plenty of ushers, we still have people who really want to live into that opportunity to be able to be a steward to their parish, which I think is a real gift. As though to say, if it's worked up until this point, I have good reason to believe that it's going to keep on working into this area Catholic community initiative.
That's right. Just like any groups of families that are coming together, there always will be adjustments, but we'll figure it out. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be the best. It's not going to be, but we do what we can.
Sure. So let's conclude just by mentioning maybe a few quick things. So what are some of the specifics? We got 29 area Catholic communities. They are made up of 131 parishes. The goal is to be collaborative, not competitive. Anything like any other specifics you can think of that we are already area Catholic communities, even if some of the trappings haven't really taken form?
Right. Yeah, to be open to the changes that will be coming, because it's going to feel like this process has dragged on a really long time, and then wham, here are the changes. And then suddenly there's a period of time of nothing happening, and then there's another big change. Well, we have to take this piece by piece by piece by piece. And that's what family life is like at home. Mm-hmm. You don't take on the entire year of projects all in 1 week. You spread the projects out over a number of weeks and months, and so that the family can get things done around the house and live. And seasons of things happen. People get sick, stuff comes up, COVID enters in and messes with everybody's schedule of things. So just be patient, everyone. I think as far as the practicals go, yes, we are moving to one bulletin. Yes, we are moving to have one website. Yes, we are moving to having the priests share in a different relationship one way or the other with these parishes overall. I mean, the bishop did kind of set some boundaries of how it would all look for us, and we know that we need to conform ourselves to that as best we can. The finances, let me just be absolutely clear about this for those that are worried. The finances will always be separate. In the state of Minnesota, that has to be that way. Yep. Always, always, always. But as far as most of the programming that we do, we are going to be looking to try to join some of the programming together, looking at faith formation and religious ed, youth ministry, evangelization, and that other one.
And that other one, yes. So I mentioned to Father Aaron at the beginning of all this, before we started, that I was a bit tired today, and I really expected him to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and I think he's done that today. Father Aaron, thank you so much for coming to share some of your time with us tonight, and to make a little bit more concrete what we can expect of the Area Catholic Community Initiative, okay?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I hope to be on again sometime in the future.
Fantastic. Tune in most every Tuesday for brand new episodes at 7 p.m., and we'll see you next week.